Hey guys, how you doing? jpsarrireviews here. Now, the first season of Invincible has come to an end on Prime Video, and a lot of people are singing the praises. But the question is this: is this show good or is it bad? So in the next couple of minutes, we're going to find out. They're good. The first thing that I want to mention is that I've been following Invincible for many years now, almost since the beginning of the comic book. I've been reading it. I remember when I got back in the early 2000s into comics for a time, it was very popular. In my comic book shop, local comic book shop, there were a lot of Invincible comics and people were talking the praises all the time. So I decided to grab it and read the comic back then. And I wouldn't say that I was totally impressed at the beginning of it, because it was one thing about Invincible is that it's always been geared towards a younger crowd, a younger audience. That was at the beginning of the story. It was pretty much the story of a teenage that discovered that he has powers, that he is actually part of a alien race through the DNA of his father, and he comes to that conclusion, but also into terms with his power and what it means to have power and the responsibility of it. So at first it was, he took a lot of ideas. The creator of the story, Kirkman, and initially the art was done by Cory, who happens to be also the lead designer for the show. And then it was taken by Ryan Utley, who in my opinion is the better artist, or the one that is more recognized when you think about Invincible. And, it was interesting, but it took a lot of ideas from other parts of comics. But I think it was popular because of the approach to young messages. And I feel that the show, in this case, the adaptation, it's really true to the story. And I like that. I think that's the biggest thing about the show here, is that the adaptation is really spot on. It's really good. Normally, when you have to convert this into a show, any comic book story or any part of literature into this type of shows or movies, it's always something that is going to be sacrificed. You have to sacrifice it in order to save time. But I feel that the writers, the script writers here, they have done a terrific job in adapting this into only 8 episodes, because technically the whole show covers the first 50 issues of the series, which is a lot of issues that have been converted into only 8 episodes. And they have done a terrific job. I'm telling you, the adaptation is good. I think it's perhaps, I'm just coming to this point where I'm feeling that this is perhaps the best adaptation so far that we have seen. There are others out there. Of course, DC has done a great job doing so, and even Marvel with some of the animated shows. But this is up there. It's really good. They have done a terrific job, and I think that's the biggest thing here. If you're a fan of Invincible, you have read the comics over the years, then you're going to really delight yourself while you're watching this show. Another aspect that is very attractive about the show is the visuals. The animation is so good. I really love the animation. Again, Cory, the original art creator, designer in the comic, is the one leading the design here. So it's like you're seeing the comic book come to life on the screen, on the animation, which is good. The design of Invincible, his father, Omni-Man, the heroes, the villains, everything is so good. It's taken from that, and it's like you feel that the adaptation is perfect. They're not taking any deviations or making changes on that. I loved it. Totally loved it. And not only that, the soundtrack is so good. The soundtrack here, normally this type of animated films or shows or movies, they use music, of course, stock music, and that is generic in some ways, and it kind of does the job. But here, they use songs from different bands and artists, very youthful songs, but at the same time, they are really playing with the emotions. They're working with the emotions. They're really expanding on the scenes, from the graphics, the visuals, from the music soundtrack. All of that really plays so well. Definitely, this is geared towards young people, but I think any person that has read the story and really love this type of stories anyway is going to feel right at home. The Bat. Now it's time to talk about The Bat. And yes, even though it is a great adaptation, the voice acting is good, is really good. The animation, the soundtrack, all of that works well together. It's so good the way they put it all together. There are a couple of things that are not as good. And one of them, in my opinion, is the mature elements. They can be very excessive. Now, if you have read the comic, you know that there are mature elements there. However, I would say that the comic book was a bit restrained in some of them. particularly because they were geared towards a younger audience. You know, there were a lot of teenagers reading the comics, so they try to keep it as clean as they could, you know, with some limitations. There were a couple of things, of course, some language here and there, and, you know, blood and, you know, killings and all of that, but not as much as I think that they're doing with the show. The show really has taken all those barriers down, and they have crossed that to the point that I can see why people are comparing this with The Boys, even though they're totally different stories, because it is excessive to the point that I think this has more blood, more gore, and even more foul language than the recent Mortal Kombat film that I review here on the channel. It does have more of that. And I found it surprising, and sometimes too much. I think a couple of things that you can kind of skip and give the idea to the viewer that what happened, somebody died or was killed like that. But no, here they went into full dismemberment, you know, heads exploding, all of that. It's just excessive. And if you have a weak stomach, then definitely you're going to have a problem with it. Yeah, so I would say that it's not necessarily bad for everyone. But if you're a purist too, if you love things to be as clean as, well, not I say as clean, but as close to the source material as possible, then they went overboard with it. And ultimately, it's a matter of choice. Some people don't have a problem with that. They actually love that. But a lot of people are going to feel conflicted by it because there are a couple of moments where you feel, I don't know if this was the right thing. This killing or this person dying or this even children dying had been the best thing to present. So yeah, it is something that we need to point out and many are going to find as a flaw. Another thing that I need to mention that many are going to consider a flaw, particularly if you have read the comics or you're familiar with the story, is there are a lot of changes here. And yes, changes are important. We know that because you're adapting the comic book into a TV show. But some changes for some characters they fall more in line with political correctness, like changing I would say the race, or changing the gender, or changing the sexual orientation that before wasn't part of the story. Now it's part of the story. And it becomes more like trying to fall in line with today's worldview, the way people are looking at things in the world and about being open and changing things and making changes and all of that. And for people to feel accepted and for, representation, all of that, which I'm a fan. I believe in representation. I believe that we need more characters that represent different groups in our society. But at the same time, I'm against the idea that we need to change a character the way it was created just to represent someone of today, and I feel that that's one thing that it becomes kind of bothersome. And there are a couple aspects there. And I know a lot of people that are coming to the show for the first time that have never read the comic book are not going to see the problem there. They're going to be okay with it. It's fine for them. But for those who have been faithful to the comic book story, they may have a problem with that because they say, well, I don't think this is necessary. And where you're heading with this or you're going with this is not necessarily adding anything of value to the story. So yes, it is a problem for some people, particularly again, those who have read the comics that are faithful to this show, in this case to the story, because they built this franchise, by buying the comics. So yeah, there is a problem there, and some people are not going to see it, and some people might be okay with that. But ultimately, definitely it's something that's worth mentioning. In conclusion, I'm telling you, I really enjoy the show for the most part. There are a lot of things there. Yes, there were excessive moments. This is not for young kids. It is mature, so you have to respect that. Yes, it becomes excessive at times with the blood, the gore, and even the foul language. It was excessive. At the same time, they have done a terrific job in adapting the comic book. The story is really good. It's engaging. If you have never read Invincible, I recommend it to you. So if I have to give this show a final score, in my book, it's an 8 out of 10, which is really good. It's excellent. And definitely a couple of things there, again, that perhaps need attention. But beyond that, it's great. And it's a fun watch if you're into it. So my friends, what is your opinion? What do you think about it? Have you watched it? Are you planning to watch it? Have you read the comic book? Let me know in the comments below. So once again, my friends, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, to comment, and to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification button so you're reminded of the next video. Follow me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The links are down below. And please consider supporting the channel financially through Patreon. My friends, God bless you. Take care. I will talk to you again. Bye-bye.